Okay. So we're going to take our same regular image, and I'm going to show you some other kind of alterations that we can make. And again, it's a smart object, so I can always go back and change it. So I'm going to go to Filter, Distort, and the first thing that I'm going to look at is what does, not displace. Filter, Distort, what does polar coordinates do? So polar coordinates does this kind of odd thing, right? But it's kind of interesting. You could either do rectangular to polar or polar to rectangle. So polar to rectangle makes like M's basically, and rectangle to polar makes kind of circle, right? So I can kind of do that. And again, I have no other control over it other than saying do this, but I can create something like this. Right? Kind of trippy, kind of things that are going on there. Let's look at some other distorts that you could do. I'm going to go ahead and do ripple. So ripple does that. Whoa. Right? I could change the size of it, large. Now, depending on it, sometimes it's not the desired effect that you want, but it's there. So I thought I'd show you. But here's a really cool one if you look at shear. Bring up shear, and it looks like you're like, wait a minute, what am I looking at here? Watch as I pull this over to the right. And I can do all sorts of I can add ones to it. I can also say repeat edge pixels. So again, like the other one, it's repeating as I drag these off to the side. And if you ever feel like you have too many, just click on one of the black dots and drag it all the way off, and it goes away. Let's see what that looks like without polar coordinates. And now I've kind of shifted this. Now, what could I do with that? I could mask some of that, so only part of that is showing over top of my regular image. So for example, let's just select this little part here. Right, so now I have part of my image shifted and moved over top of my other ones. Okay, so what else can we do? Let's go back to distorts. Let's go to wave. Now wave is the one that is it's going to look really bizarre, and you're like, what am I looking at? It looks like a bunch of options that are here that I have no idea what they do. Yeah. That's kind of the fun of it though, right? You're just kind of playing around. So there's different types. So sine does more of these kind of waves up and down. Triangle does more kind of angles. And square does, is that a question or stress? Square does more square-like things. So the number of generators, right? You see as I increase this, what happens? More things start to happen because it generates it more. My wavelength, you can see as I minimize my wavelength, less things happen. You can see my scale's at 100%. What if I shifted one of those and only had it move in one direction? Amplitude, right? So you can see what's starting to kind of happen with this wavelength. Let's move this really kind of minimally. And let's do OK. Right? And there's the wave that happened. Now, if you go in there like, whoa, too much. Double click on that, and I can just adjust real easily. All right, go back in there. It's only have 5 generators. You can see it shifts it just a little bit. Now, if I double click back on the wave and say, you know what, wavelength, let's make this bigger. You know, let's like make this bigger. Let's make not as many generators. Let's shift. Let's change this. And now I have a completely new effect. Right? If you would have taken this and tried to manually split that up, that would have taken you a very long time. But I played with a couple little things here and there, and I was able to split up this image. Right? So some interesting kind of things you can do. Again, you can have, you know, this is offsets, polar coordinates, mixed in with wave, and I get this like really super digital kind of staticky kind of feeling. And I could also then take this, I'm just going to take this and duplicate it, and I'm going to flatten this image. I'm going to rasterize it. So then let's say I wanted to take this and just now make it condensed. Right, so now I have that static kind of overlaid over top of that. I could blend that down, and now I have these kind of like staticky lines kind of on top of this image, right? So it's the idea that you can really manipulate this and really kind of distort it in all sorts of ways, and it's really up to you as how you kind of manipulate it. Hopefully you can kind of see how we can maybe start to piece some of this together and create these interesting visuals kind of just based upon some of that stuff. Any questions on this? No. All right.